Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. You have been shrunk to 1 centimeter in size, and now you must face a journey with brutal challenges against giant insects, while running from a colossal human hunter. Today we will recap the movie, Mini Hero, from 2022. In the middle of a dark and scary forest was the former mansion of a mad scientist named Da Vinci. The new owner of the house is transported in her sleep into a terrible nightmare, where she is surprised by the mad scientist in his laboratory. He chases her screaming into a television set. The girl desperately flees through the corridors, but the doors only take her inside again, until diabolical hands grab her by the neck. But this was all a story told by a young man named Zhang, who is trying to scare his customers, since he works as a tour guide for the doctor's haunted house, which has now become a museum. His boss Mr. Wang gives him an absurd scolding, and tells him to stop telling these stupid stories, because they are becoming a laughingstock to the customers. Well, despite being saddened by the situation, he continues his work and asks his tour group to get into the bus before it leaves, but as he stands alone in the hallway of the mansion, he hears a strange noise coming from the basement. He finds it strange that someone is down there. After all, there is a restricted entrance sign, so he decides to investigate and see if anyone is lost in the place. When he opens the door, he is startled by the flashing lights, and ends up stepping on the wrong step and plummeting down the stairs. With this he knocks over all his things, including his soda, which spills out onto the floor and short-circuits a toy car. Zhang manages to get up and observes that the whole room has been taken over by electric currents. But as he tries to run away, he ends up stepping on the electric cart, and the shock ends up shrinking the boy, leaving him completely tiny. When Zhang wakes up, he is sitting inside the toy car, and in front of him is a monstrous ant banging several times on the windshield of the car. He jumps into the driver's seat and tries to start the vehicle, but the car doesn't even give a signal. But something catches the insect's attention. It was a crazy man using a flamethrower. With fire he manages to drive the horde of ants away. But to his misfortune, the gas in his tank ran out and the fire simply stopped coming out. The old man would be dead if it weren't for Lily, a skillful girl who jumps over the insects as a bridge, and throws several bombs between them. She uses her combat skills to defeat the ants with her bare hands. The woman runs towards the old man and tells him that all the explosives are ready. And then kaboom! The great shockwave blows away several ants and completely drives the horde away. Zhang takes advantage of this and runs towards his strange rescuers, and when he realizes that the old man is the creepy Vince's doctor, he ends up fainting from fright. When Zhang finally wakes up, he notices in front of him the shadow of the doctor doing something that looks completely macabre. But as he runs to the exit door, the situation is even worse. Everything is now huge and the insects there seem much worse than anything else. The scientist appears angrily coming towards him, blaming the boy for destroying his machine and wiping out years of study. Zhang has destroyed the car that took Da Vinci 10 years to build, and now he will have to start all over again from scratch. Lily, the doctor's assistant, appears with her creepy robotic smile to explain what is going on. She shows the vehicle that Zhang broke down and says that it is actually a mobile particle collider. Da Vinci invented a way to shrink objects 10 years ago using the alpha particle, and so began shrinking various things inside his laboratory to study his new technology, even applying it to living creatures. But one day he decided that he would put himself as a guinea pig. He put the particle collider in a car, and shrunk himself with absolute success, but the demented one didn't create the reverse mode, so he couldn't get big again. So he spent the last 10 years trying to reverse his experiment, while everyone else thought he had disappeared like a madman. One day he achieved his goal, to find out how to reverse the process and return to normal. However, that day was exactly today, when the lights flashed and Zhang rolled down the stairs, causing the short in the doctor's cart. When Zhang stepped on the particle collider and almost hit Da Vinci, the cart used its last energies to shrink the boy, and so it was all over. The scientist had lost his creation. The tour guide then realizes what a mistake he has made and tries to apologize to Da Vinci, begging him to make it big again, but the totally enraged scientist tells him to get the boy out of his lab. Zhang loses control and starts to blame the old man for getting like that, so the doctor pushes him out of the socket where they were. He wanted to abandon him to be with the giant bloodthirsty creatures. Well, after a while the doctor thinks better of it and figures out how to reverse the situation, and asks Lily to look for the guide outside, but as she leaves, she sees that the boy had disappeared. Meanwhile, Zhang's boss appeared at the mansion, looking for the employee who was not answering his cell phone. He descends into the basement where the laboratory is, and Zhang even tries to climb up on the table and get Mr. Wang's attention, screaming absurdly, but to no avail. But the guide realizes that there was a beaker on the table, and using a pencil as a lever, he drops it on the floor. The sound of breaking glass drew Mr. Wang back, who arrives with the macabre face of a slasher movie villain. He thinks it was the tiny professor who was there, since he has tried several times to catch him, but always ends up losing him. When he sees the broken beaker, he realizes that his tiny prey should be on the table. But when he looks there, Zhang has already disappeared. For the crazy one was rescued by Vinci at the last second. However, instead of being grateful for this, Zhang still continues to fight with the scientist, but Vinci warns him about the danger he is experiencing. Mr. Wang is not there to help them but to capture them and sell them as a revolutionary experiment, but before they could make any decision, the giant boss has found the two, and he is amazed to see that Zhang has also become tiny. As Vinci rightly says, Wang says that he plans to sell them for millions of dollars and thus become extremely rich. Zhang is shocked at how his boss and friend was a damned greedy traitor, and when the giant was about to capture them, the demented man is dragged away by gang members. These criminals are actually debt collectors, and threaten to cut off the boy's arm if the debt is not paid by tomorrow. Zhang and the scientist manage to get back to the mini-lab from the socket, and he finally discovers that Lily is a robot assistant, which was quite obvious. Vinci tells the boy that they need to retrieve the microchip to fix the particle collider, but the object is inside the stabilizer he built, which, guess what, is being used by the damned Wang. The mission will be dangerous, but they won't go empty-handed. Vinci opens a secret compartment full of weaponry in a steampunk style. They equip themselves with the new weapons, and are now ready for the insane mission to rescue the microchip. Mr. Wang is also in his office preparing for the hunt for his tiny prey. And the trio ends up there, and they wait patiently until the giant leaves the place, and they can break into the lunatic boss's room and steal back the microchip. When they get to the stabilizer, find a real electric tunnel, with violent discharges that would kill anyone who dared to go through it. Anyone but Lily. She runs through the walls, but ends up getting a violent discharge. And yet she is able to recover and cross the entire corridor, which allows her to climb through the opening in the ceiling and deactivate the trap's energy, and finally open the door to her team. They go to the system's motherboard and find the microchip that was the target of the mission, but Zhang wonders how they will remove the thing that was soldered to the system. And for this Vinci is inspired, and uses a great chainsaw to break the protective irons. And so they manage to remove the microchip, but with this brute force strategy they ended up setting off the system alarm, alerting the whole place of their presence. Well, meanwhile, in the basement of the mansion, Wang is with his detectives magnifying glass hunting for his valuable little humans, and ends up noticing that there was something strange with one of the sockets near the floor. As he approaches it and removes the lid, he discovers Dr. Vinci's secret mini-lab. This is when he notices the security alarm that went off right from his living room, and it was time for him to put his plan into action. When the team returns to the gate carrying the trinkets from the mission, they realize that something was wrong, no sign of the giant hunter, and the mission had been too easy. And as they enter the mini-lab, the particle collider has been stolen, and suddenly a huge earthquake strikes with no apparent explanation. Zhang tries to peek through a crack in the socket and is met with a dark eye staring at him. Vinci distributes the weaponry to the team, and everyone starts shooting Wang in the head with the awesome little guns, causing him to run and roll around the room. The takeover has turned into a machine gun fire, but Wang has one card up his sleeve. A supreme, devastating vacuum cleaner. He plans to create a hole that sucks in all the tiny members. Wang puts the vacuum cleaner's pipe into the hole in the socket and turns on the monster, creating a whirlpool of air that starts sucking in everything in the mini-lab. And the three of them have to hold on with all their strength not to be killed. Wang turns off his powerful weapon, and starts rummaging through the dust bag for the little human projects, and they wait patiently until the giant leaves the place. He takes a good look through the socket and is furious to discover that the trio has escaped through a small hole and headed for a secret tunnel. But there is one very important detail in all of this: where was that tunnel going? Vinci has no idea, because it was years ago that it was built, and to make matters worse, there were only a few inches of tunnel. In fact, the old man never finished opening that escape route. This forces them to go back all over again, and Dr. Vinci even thinks this would be a good idea. After all, the giant wouldn't expect them to go back to the mini-lab. But they can't do anything else there either. Besides being all destroyed and without equipment, the place is open and vulnerable. So they make their way to Wang's office room, and see the demented man there stretched out in his armchair. It turns out that the giant has just discovered by looking at the doctor's tiny blackboard, how important the toy car was. And to protect him from his enemies, he puts him in a basin with a gigantic scorpion. A better guardian he certainly couldn't have. But Dr. Vinci has an interesting plan. He asks his robot assistant to swing around and drop a sleeping pill into Wang's glass of water. And so it didn't take long for the giant to drink the entire glass without suspecting anything, getting totally sleepy and collapsing on the table. Now it was time to go with the plan. They make improvised wingsuits, jump at full speed, and everything seemed to be going well, Everyone starts to open their parachutes, but Zhang is in trouble, which causes him to fall directly into the basin, rolling right into the center of the deadly arena. That's right, there is the giant scorpion. The macabre monster attacks the guide with its sharp claws and tries to hit him several times with lethal stinging blows. Then Zhang ends up being lifted into the air, screaming in desperation for someone to help him, otherwise he will be eliminated. Luckily, his friends arrive, and then the robot girl uses her hook to grab Zhang and pull him back. Vinci and Zhang rush to the car and let the fighting machine deal with the beast. Lily calculates every move of the scorpion and dodges every attack. The pair reach the miniature cart, while the girl holds with all her might the scorpion's tail that is about to puncture her friends, as they try to get into the car. But when they get into the car, bad news, the car won't start. It doesn't take long for Lily to lose her strength and be thrown far away by the scorpion, and barely broken in half by its disgusting claws. She goes at him with a knife, and tears his lower body. But she ends up getting hit and gets a hole in her amazing bionic arm. Lily uses the walls of the basin to jump on the monster's back, and pierces it several times, but again, she is hit by the stinger. And this was not enough to stop her. The robot girl uses her hook to lock onto the creature, running around it with the cables and leaving it compacted and completely immobile. Finally, the scorpion was under control. And to everyone's surprise, the cart finally started. But happiness was gone the moment the scorpion managed to break free and gave Lily's back a deadly sting. Zhang tries desperately to help her, but the girl tells him to stay safe. She is only a robot and doesn't have a life to lose. Lily throws her control to her friends, and activates her self-destruction. With pain in his heart, Vinci speeds up the car and jumps out of the basin, leaving the big explosion of his assistant and friend behind. As they leave that dangerous place, the two realize that they had really lost Lily. The doctor remembers all the good she had done in his life. The scientist tells Zhang with his real story behind this robot. She was created to look like a person he loved more than anything. Vinci had a student at the university named Ming, who made the scientist feel love at first sight as soon as he met her. The two began to work together, which brought their relationship even closer, and Ming also began to fall in love with Vinci. But the doctor began to give more importance to his research than to the girl, always leaving her aside, causing her to get tired and leaving him alone. Vinci tried to continue the experiment alone, but after a while he decided to make a robot that looked like his beloved. Although Lily could help him as before, the doctor could never shake off the feeling of bitterness for what he had done, losing the most important person. Well, but it was time to get everything back to normal. The two of them head towards the particle collider, but the old man with the temper tantrum remembers something extremely problematic. There is only one alpha particle, so only one will be able to return to its original size, which means that one of them is in trouble. And if everything looked bad enough, it gets worse, because Mr. Wang wakes up, and when he realizes that the miniature vehicle has disappeared from the basin, he goes into a complete rage and lets out a loud scream. He rushes to the basement and begins to destroy the scientist's entire laboratory, venting all his anger at losing his chance to get rich. As he calms down and returns to his room, he notices that the security camera is filming exactly the two little ones, who are still there arguing over who will return to normal. The giant comes up behind them, ready to capture them, but Vinci pushes Zhang away, and ends up being caught alone to save his friend, and Wang begins to take several pictures to show his newest treasure that will make him filthy rich. But Zhang would not let this go unnoticed. The doctor realizes that his friend has turned on the particle collider, and is determined to use the car to save him, since he did the same last time. The old man yells at him not to do that, but Zhang ignores any warning and takes off at full speed with the Hot Wheels cart. Wang sees the flying cart and tries every way to stop the vehicle, but Vinci has thought out how to solve everything quickly. He presses the button on the control so that the collider activates in the air, and Zhang jumps out of the car. Returning to normal size and then with a supreme pan, he hits Wang's head with style, finishing everything off masterfully. A short time later, Zhang is giving an interview on television to spread that technology to everyone and assures people that Dr. Vinci is still alive and well. Then we find out that the scientist has decided to meet Ming once again and has finally reconciled and asked her to marry him, and Zhang is there with the two of them, congratulating them on their great achievement. Mr. Wang, on the other hand, it's not in his best days. He was put in a bowl with a scorpion, and now he will have to live running away from that creature if he doesn't want to be stung. And so ends the little mini-hero's journey. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.